Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Invisible Condition. It's not all in your head. I'm your host, Jeff Pearson, and we want everybody with an invisible condition, no matter what that condition is, to know beyond the shadow of a doubt that you do have a voice, you do have a community, and you are never alone. And our guest today is absolutely awesome. Yalda Mohammadi is a fibromyalgia survivor and a passionate advocate for chronic pain awareness and recovery. So this is going to be a good show. Yalda's former struggle with chronic pain. Notice I said former struggle. This is going to be good. You're going to like this. Including 14 years of fibromyalgia, enriches her practice, providing, invaluable empathy and guidance on the path to recovery and healing. So, it always works out that way, right? If you have a history with something, you're always going to be more empathetic in helping people with it. So it's awesome. Yalda employs a mind-body approach informed by the latest pain science research, focusing on reprogramming the brain to eliminate chronic pain symptoms. Okay, eliminating chronic pain symptoms. Just remember that phrase right there. She is the founder of Empowering Healing Coaching, where she serves as a pain recovery life coach and mentor. So let's bring her on the show and kick this bad boy up. Yalda, thank you so much for being here. This is awesome.
Thanks so much for having me, Jeff.
Yeah, this is going to be so cool. And you know what? We were talking before the show, and I said, let's talk after the show because I might think of people that I want to connect you with. I already did. So I'm going to write it down again. I was like, oh yeah. As I was reading your intro to everybody, I was like, oh, you know what? We need to introduce her to this person. So yeah, we're going to talk afterwards too. This is great. So
that sounds great.
But so the listeners and I, the watchers, viewers, everybody here, whether you're listening, watching, we're excited to hear about how you overcame so-called chronic pain, right? So chronic pain is a thing. Everybody talks about it. It's chronic fatigue syndrome. It's fibromyalgia. It's, all the things. Can you just share with us first, just start with your personal journey of living with fibromyalgia. And then for those, like, what was it, 14 years?
Yeah.
And what was that like?
Yeah. Well, first I'd like to maybe talk about what fibromyalgia is.
Yes. Good.
Just like a textbook definition, and then we can discuss a more modern understanding of fibromyalgia informed by modern science. Okay. So, fibromyalgia affects millions of people, and it's estimated that anywhere from 4 to 12 million people have it in the US alone, although those are probably really conservative estimates, and it's likely a lot higher than that. And fibromyalgia medically translates to painful muscle tissue. So it is a type of chronic pain syndrome that is musculoskeletal in nature. So it primarily affects muscles, ligaments, and tendons. And it's characterized by widespread pain in all 4 quadrants of the body. And I want to highlight constant pain because that is a key characteristic. So, the pain is always there, but the intensity will range anywhere from like mild, moderate to severe, even within a 24-hour period. So when I had it, a typical day for me would be waking up with a lot of pain in the morning. Then it would get a little bit better throughout the day. And then it would pick up again at night and just totally interrupt my sleep cycle. Now, everyone's pain cycle looks different, of course. And even though widespread pain is a hallmark of fibromyalgia, it is often accompanied by a range of other symptoms, like you touched on, fatigue, like chronic fatigue, mental fatigue, physical fatigue. So mental fatigue is when, you feel like you have cottage cheese brain. That's what I would call it.
Right.
It's so hard to focus. Your mental faculties feel crossed and haywired. And the physical fatigue is just that like tired quality in your body. And if you've ever had a bad flu, you could probably relate to this. And it doesn't get better with rest. And it's hard to fall asleep when your body is just physically aching. There's also the non-restorative sleep, which is when you get like a good hearty 8-9 hours of sleep, but you wake up feeling like you were partying all night long. There are also other symptoms like nausea, irritable bowel syndrome, irritable bladder, and it's quite an extensive list.
Yeah.
So, it's it's really tough to live with, even just the pain itself can be really difficult to live with. And, the pain, and we use the word pain a lot, and it can mean different things, right? So with fibromyalgia, a lot of times it means it's like a tenderness. The muscles feel really tender or they feel really weak, but also the muscles can feel really tight. There can be a lot of tension, and you can even have burning sensations. Like I had what felt like nerve pain, like classic nerve pain, but I didn't have any nerve damage. So, you could be struggling with like 10 to 15 different symptoms with fibromyalgia. And I think, so that's a little bit that's like the background on fibromyalgia. Okay. And in terms of living with it, I love this question because there was a lot of social judgment and social isolation that I experienced living with fibromyalgia, because people would look at me and they'd be like, "You look great.
You're fine. Yeah.
Like, you look so healthy.
Yeah.
Look at that thick hair, look at that smile. Like, why are you complaining?" And it's, it's like a stab in the gut when you are in so much pain.
Seriously.
Like you're in bed, and people are looking at you and they're really dismissive. And I think that there are clearly a lot of invisible conditions that people struggle every day that others don't know anything about.
Yeah. I encountered that myself. You would never know what I have by looking at my outward appearance. But the most recent brain surgery I had was in October of 2021 to treat the condition that I live with. And I went back to work, and one of the guys one of those well-meaning people on the planet, he's amazing. And he looked at me, he's like, "Okay, oh, so you're back from surgery. So you're good now. You're good. All right, awesome. You're back. You're good." And I'm like, "Well, I'm alive. I mean, the surgery let me not die, so I'm still here." So but it doesn't eliminate necessarily the condition. It just helps me continue with life, and so there's a lot of people that don't understand the chronic aspect of it. But yeah, and with fibromyalgia, my gosh, it can be misdiagnosed with so many as so many other things.
Exactly.
People it takes years sometimes to get diagnosed, right?
Yeah. So, well, I think one of the common misconceptions is that fibromyalgia is an autoimmune disorder, and it is not. That is a misconception. In some ways, it resembles an autoimmune disorder like lupus because of similar symptoms. But, inflammation is not a key characteristic like it is for a lot of autoimmune disorders. And one of the most astonishing aspects of fibromyalgia is that there is no pathological process. So there's no tissue breakdown. There isn't an underlying serious medical issue with this condition. And yet people are experiencing pain that is so debilitating, they're unable to function. Many of them are on disability.
Right.
And according to brain imaging studies, the pain from fibromyalgia can be felt as deeply as the pain from a bone fracture.
Sure.
So
yeah, no, I believe that.
Real. The pain is real. And even though other people think, well, your blood work is normal, your x-rays and your MRIs are normal, you're fine.
You're good. Go home.
Yeah. No, that's not the case. Thankful to those brain imaging studies, that actually can reveal what's happening in the brain.
Totally. Well, you know what? Just to throw this out there, by the way, thank you for watching, everybody. By the way, thank you for being here. I so appreciate you, and for you, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or E360. If any of you out there watching can relate to what Yalda is talking about, and with chronic pain, or better yet, anyone who wants to know that chronic pain doesn't have to be chronic, right? We're going to rock the boat a little bit today. So anything you hear during this episode that you want to hear more information about, definitely. Oh, you know what? I'm going to grab this too. By the way, there is your website. So if you have questions out there, scan this QR code and it'll go to Yalda's website. And then also, if you want to ask a question, you can just reach out on Facebook or YouTube or wherever and say, "Hey, I want to talk," and she can connect with you and answer your questions. So just wanted to get that out there. So this is the girl to talk to. You've got the expert here for about another 40 minutes. So take advantage of it. So I mean, we're going to get talking about how you got through this and are helping other people, but just to stay here for just a second. So many women feel so misunderstood and invalidated, oh, it can't be, you're just imagining things, you just suck it up, right? You're just because fibromyalgia is a lot more common in women than it is in men. Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Almost 90%.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't know a single man that has fibromyalgia. I've never heard a guy talk about it. So I kind of figured it was.
There are.
There probably are.
Not as many.
Yeah, not as many. And if there are, they probably don't talk about it as much because it's not a, it's like just toughen up, right?
It's hard to talk about, I think, especially for men, the way that men are socialized, like you said, to be a man, don't complain, tough it out.
Yeah.
And so it's, I think, harder for men actually to ask for help when it comes to, I think, a lot of areas in life, actually, but I think specifically chronic pain. Because
we're supposed to be tough, right? Suck it up, buttercup. You can deal with it. You can, it's not that bad, right? So, but I mean, hey, believe me, I've never experienced fibromyalgia, but I had one solid year of nonstop migraines.
Oh my God.
That'll knock you off your horse real quick.
I used to struggle with migraines for different reasons, but I can only imagine a year.
So I was asking for help left and right, and the neurosurgeon didn't give us any. So we he said, well, I guess you're just going to have to live with headaches. So we started looking elsewhere, and thankfully found a couple non-medical modalities that were able to get rid of them. So maybe we could talk about that after the show too. But for anybody that is struggling with migraines that are persistent, but might have a potential thing for you to look at for that. But yeah, I mean, it's a thing. No matter what the tests say, you're in pain, right? It doesn't matter. You are hurting, and it doesn't matter what they say because you live in your body, not them. So.
Exactly. And I think one of the challenges has been in Western medicine is that the mind and the body are viewed as separate, and that's been the case, I think, historically. And typically, if you go to see a doctor for pain, they're going to screen you for a disease. They're going to screen you for an injury, an infection, and they're going to make sure there's no severe structural abnormality. And if you're cleared, they're like, okay, bye. That's the biomedical model, and it just doesn't work in the context of chronic pain. And that's why there are 1.8 billion people in the world who are struggling with it, or who have been. There's more information, fortunately, now, thanks to neuroscience, which we can talk a little bit about that too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and by the way, speaking of more information, tell us what people are going to find when I said, just click on your, scan the QR code if you want to talk to you, but what are they going to find when they scan that QR code? If they want to talk to you, what will they find?
That's a great question. So you can learn a little bit more about me and my background. You can learn about my professional background. You can learn about my personal background. I talk a little bit about my struggle with fibromyalgia and some of the symptoms that I had. And then I talk about the modalities that I use to overcome my chronic illness. And, I had chronic pain from as early as 5 years old. So I actually had chronic pain for 28 years. And I was navigating the healthcare system to no avail for decades, spending lots of money, seeing every doctor, every specialist that you can imagine. So I talk a little bit about that background, and 14 of those years, like you mentioned, were with fibromyalgia. So also I talk a little bit about chronic pain and some of the pain science resources that folks can learn more about if they're interested in one of the modalities that I'm trained in. It's called pain reprocessing therapy. Like you mentioned, it refers to a system of psychological techniques that you use to reprogram your brain to shut off chronic pain symptoms. It's an evidence-based modality. It's highly effective for the majority of chronic pain. So there's a little bit of information on that. And then also just ways to reach out to me. I have a link to my monthly meetup group, which is free. It's a virtual meetup group for those who are struggling with chronic pain, including, fibromyalgia, of course. And it's just a great way for folks to, one, meet other people who are also struggling. A lot of times when we are facing an illness, we struggle in silence, or it's challenging to talk about it. And one of the reasons why it's challenging is because a lot of people around us don't always understand. And so we experience shame with our illness. So we become quiet. So this is a space where people start to open up to each other and they start to build these relationships. And I also teach them about pain science education. There's a Q&A where you can ask me any questions. Nice. So it's just a really great space. So to anyone who's interested, like I said, it's free. It's virtual. So, you get to join in the comfort of your own home.
Awesome. Yeah, that's the way to do it, man. Communities are huge. It's so nice to have that community to know that people are dealing with the same crap you are, and they're trying to get through it just like you.
Basically,
it's so comforting to be in an environment like that. So yeah, jump on it, everybody. That sounds awesome. So I mean, I'm sorry. Say that one more time about your group. Is it how often do you meet?
Yeah, it's once a month, and usually on Sunday evenings.
Okay, cool. And that's somewhere if they go to the website, there's information there for it.
There is a direct link to the Meetup site. So the app is called Meetup.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Very cool. That's awesome. Well, I tell you what, I want to dive into more of the story, but we're gonna go to a break real quick. I feel like we're at a good spot, so we're gonna go to a quick commercial break, and then after that, I'm gonna take that off. Don't worry, everybody, it's coming back, so you can scan the QR code after we come back. So come back after the break, and you can scan it. We're gonna come back and talk about more of your story and your victory, basically, over fibromyalgia, and how you're able to maintain a life without the symptoms. So that's going to be cool. That's what we want to know, right? That's what everybody's wanting to know. So stick around. We'll see you on the other side of the break.
Hey there. Every time someone comes into your business or website and uses their card to pay, a percentage of that gets folded back into the system. But it can go to Hydro with Hope instead. If you'd like your business to support us rather than feed back into the system, scan the QR code and we'll show you how to do that while saving your business money.
Hi, I'm Jake, co-founder and CEO of One Hope. My friends and I started this company in 2007 out of the back of this truck on a mission to enrich people's lives through wine.
Today, we've grown into a state-of-the-art Napa Valley winery that proudly houses a portfolio of award-winning wines which have touched lives through over 40,000 nonprofits at home and around the globe. And it's happening every day. Being rooted in local communities and contributing to initiatives that uplift neighborhoods, celebrate cultures, and promote community. It's what got us here. You see, through every bottle sold, your purchase can make a direct impact on the causes you care about. One Hope's cause of choice has given back over $10 million and counting.
Hi everyone, I'm Andy.
And I'm Minna.
We're the hosts of Chronically Healthy Life.
Join us Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time on Vitality TV to see how we flip the idea of chronic on its head and create chronic health in our bodies, minds, finances, and relationships right here on E360 TV.
Hey, everybody, before we bring Yalda back on and talk more about how she's rocking it with fibromyalgia and actually symptom-free, which is going to be cool. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But I wanted to invite you to Invisible Condition University. This is something that I wish I would have had 10 years ago. I've had 4 brain surgeries and 2 other surgeries in the last 10 years. I know the system. I know how it works. And every time I had surgery, my wife and family were mostly on their own. without anybody to help them after the surgery. And that's why we created ICU. We wanted to provide a place where people can just like us, maybe just like you, could come and have a community that listens, that cares, that walks with you, no matter where you are in the process. Maybe you just got out of surgery. Maybe surgery was 6 months ago. Maybe you're still trying to figure it all out. Join us. We meet twice a month on Zoom every first and third Tuesday at 3 p.m. Mountain Time. Don't worry, all the calls are recorded. You can always go back and listen or watch anything that you missed. We provide a safe place for patients, their caregivers, their mom, their dad, whoever's helping you, to come, ask questions, vent frustrations, find information that maybe you're not getting from your medical provider. To join our growing community, just go to invisibleconditionuniversity.com, scan the QR code, go to the website. We're excited to see you there. Can't wait to meet you. And with that, let's bring Yalda back on here and keep going with this story, man. This is good stuff. So, all right. So you mentioned at one point that there was maybe I mentioned it in the intro, that at one point there was a turning point in your recovery when it was like the pain science and the neurocircuitry and all the different, and you're like, hey, this might work. Maybe I can be pain-free. I don't have to suffer like this forever. Talk about that shift, how that changed your approach.
Well, it's interesting because I, for years was trying every modality, seeing every specialist under the sun to try to get better. And, ultimately you get pretty burnt out. So you take some time off and you just focus on your coping mechanisms to just help you get through each day. And then eventually you find the motivation and the inspiration to start all over again. But what is really unusual actually is I started working with a life coach. This was before I became one. And I was working with a life coach because I wanted some guidance in my career. What ended up happening is in working with a life coach, I was able to take a more holistic approach to my life, just generally speaking. And I found ways to create more harmony and balance in sort of the key domains of my life, like career, relationships, personal development, environment, etc. And I started just to find more purpose in my life. And what that did was it reduced a lot of the stress and the anxiety that I had been living with. And I came to the realization that I've been chronically stressed and basically living with high functioning anxiety my entire life. And I wasn't diagnosed with anxiety as a child, so I knew it was there. But it was really interesting because a byproduct of working with a life coach and not even directly focusing on health was that it kind of inspired me. I felt empowered within myself to start showing it better. And I felt just kind of better about myself mentally and emotionally. And I want to talk a little bit about mental health and emotions as well and how it relates to fibromyalgia.
Absolutely.
But I just started to feel better. And just through applying the principles of life coaching, I became semi-recovered. So I was like 50% recovered. Wow. I had reduced my stress. My body just kind of relaxed. And actually, it was my mind that relaxed because most chronic pain is very mind, body in nature. The mind affects the body. So if you're able to turn that volume down on the anxiety, on the depression, on the stress that you've been struggling with, what you're also able to do is to relax that nervous system that's been stuck in fight or flight for God knows how long, probably my entire life.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge part of it. Also learning transcendental meditation helped me completely reset my nervous system. And I'm not kidding you when I tell you, I didn't learn how to take a deep breath till I was 33. That is how
when you say a deep breath, to define a deep breath, tell us what a deep breath means. Because everybody's like, oh no, I know how to breathe. I know what you're talking about. I'm a singer. I've been a singer for 30 years. I know how to take a deep breath. Tell people how to take a deep breath. How do you do it? Well,
you could probably explain it better than me.
Go for it.
Because I can only think of it intuitively. It's just this feeling that I can get when I'm able to breathe in, and I do the sort of the stomach breathing.
Uh-huh.
So when I breathe in, I kind of push out with my stomach,
Yes.
breathe in through my nose, and then I kind of release. So I really feel it I'm not feeling it so much in my neck and my chest, but more so in the stomach.
Your shoulders shouldn't move.
Yeah.
Right? If you're breathing like this, you're doing shallow breathing. That's not doing you any good.
Yep.
Yeah. You should. My choir teacher from high school said it best. She said, "Fill up your lungs like you fill up a glass of water from the bottom up." So you gotta, you use your diaphragm. Your diaphragm is low in your abdomen. You got to use that. Fill up your lungs from the bottom up, and then you won't even. If I take a deep breath, you don't even see my shoulders move. It's all in my belly, right? So it's huge. If you can just figure out how to take a deep breath, that'll help you with so many things. With everything.
Well, now I want to hear you sing, so I hope you can share.
We're not doing that today. That's not what the show is about. We're not doing that today.
But it's interesting you mentioned that, because I was starting, because I play the guitar, and I couldn't play for like 10 years because of my fibromyalgia. And my music has always been the thing that has saved me, I feel like, and it was my gateway to healing. I started playing the guitar again, and that's how I knew I was getting better. But I remember when I was taking singing lessons, it was hard for me to sing because I couldn't breathe well.
Yes. Yeah.
And so learning how to breathe properly was huge for me.
Yes. Yeah.
So
it'd be huge for anybody. Honestly, you'll have more longevity, even if you just go on walks. I mean, my wife and I try to go on a walk every day, and just going on a walk every day and using that belly, that diaphragm breathing. I mean, you are so much less tired at the end of a couple miles of walking than if you're, it's like,
absolutely.
I can't imagine. You're exhausted.
And I still incorporate breath work into my daily routine. I wake up in the morning. All I do now is I do 5 minutes of breath work in the morning and 5 minutes of breath work at night. Now, I want to say is that for a lot of people with chronic pain, breath work is hard. It can even trigger panic attacks. And so we don't have to do, even just doing some subtle breathing or gentle breathing. And I do that with some of my clients, and they respond well to that. Sometimes there's pressure to just, do it really quickly, or take 3 breaths in to do this. And it just becomes a little overwhelming. And so I don't want to overwhelm anybody. It's just simple. And getting into that routine is so crucial for the nervous system. It's so crucial for our mental health. But, a point that I wanted to make with life coaching is that I think a part of the reason why it worked so well for me is that it really recognizes how all the life areas are interconnected.
Yeah.
So, for example, people who are in a work environment where they are really stressed, or let's say they have a supervisor that is micromanaging them, they are more likely to report musculoskeletal pain, such as chronic lower back pain, neck pain, causes of disability in the country. If you are a woman and you are in the workplace and you are being bullied, whether it's micro or macro level bullying, you are more likely to develop fibromyalgia. Now, you may not put the two together. You may not think that your back pain has something to do with your boss or a colleague who's giving you a hard time. But again, that's how we're designed. We're designed to have this mind-body connection. So sometimes we can internalize our mental and our emotional pain in our bodies. And I think a really common example, maybe many can relate to, is, when you're nervous and you get a stomach ache. Right. And there's nothing actually wrong with your stomach. But like the first few interviews that I did in like a similar format like this, I would get the worst stomach aches. My stomach would be in knots all day. And I knew why. I wasn't worried. I was telling my brain, listen, everything's fine. My stomach is fine, but there's just that tension from being nervous. Or for some people, it's headaches. Sometimes you can get a headache if let's say you're really stressed, or you're grief stricken, you're going through a hard time, maybe you're going to get some headaches. So I think actually most people can relate to these sort of mind-body symptoms. But for some people like me, it becomes chronic, where versus it being situational, it's every day. So it's like waking up every day with the headache, or waking up every day with the back pain. And that's where it can get really challenging. So a part of the work in life coaching is being able to identify external stressors. That's a part of it that might be causing some of the symptoms. It could be your relationship that's unhealthy. It could be your environment. Like if you don't feel safe in your environment, that's huge, right? We want to create a sense of safety. And then there are the internal stressors. And this is where it gets interesting, where, you have to go inward. And this is what I did. And I had to look at some of my own personality tendencies and traits that was a source of my suffering. So for example, those who have people-pleasing and perfectionistic tendencies are significantly more likely to develop chronic pain, including fibromyalgia. And these are actually traits that have been extensively studied in correlation with chronic pain. I like to add pessimism to the list. I call it the 3 P's of chronic pain, because that really negative thinking, it can be very addicting, first of all. And if you're stuck in this cycle of just, thinking poorly about yourself or thinking negatively about your future, that can also start to sort of manifest in how we carry ourselves.
Well, and why is that? You're absolutely right, by the way. Yes. My question is, why is it that when we imagine a future scenario that's the unknown, why do we automatically go to negative? Why do we automatically, am I crazy or is that true? Who else? I mean, right? Who else out there? Everybody raise their hand because you all do it. We go to negative automatically.
Yeah.
And why aren't we going to positive? Why aren't we saying, well, I don't know. This is totally new, but maybe it's going to be awesome. Maybe I'm going to meet this person and they're going to be my new co-host on my show, or I'm going to meet this person and they're going to be my new best friend. I'm going to hang out with them for the next 20 years. You don't know, but no, you think you walk in the room and you go, oh, they're looking at me. Oh man, do I have something in my nose? Do I have something? Is there something on my shirt? Something negative. Something's happening. They're thinking bad of me.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
I think, what's interesting about the brain is that what is the brain's number one job?
Protection.
Yeah. To keep us safe.
Yep.
So the brain is constantly scanning for potential threats. And it's almost like a part of our evolution to be prepared for a worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And so, and I think that some people have a brain that is more sensitive. And actually, there is some research on fibromyalgia that shows that people with it have a sensitive, a sensitive brain essentially and nervous system. Sure. And so if that's the case, you can be more sensitive to pain, but also more prone to developing chronic pain. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to live with it forever.
That's true.
Yeah, exactly. But, so the brain it's really interesting. And a part of my recovery, this sounds really silly. It's been developing a relationship with my brain,
Yeah, sure.
And just kind of reminding myself like, okay, I'm safe. I don't have to have this stomach ache. I don't have to have this headache.
You're okay.
Yeah, because it's the fear-based thinking that is going to amplify that pain. Because when you respond emotionally with fear, your emotional response can activate danger signals in the brain. It can activate the response network. And then, suddenly your brain doesn't know how to communicate to you and tell you, hey, you're really scared right now, or hey, you're really depressed. So it actually creates these pain symptoms. It's kind of like a heads up. Hey, something is wrong, whether it's physically wrong or psychologically wrong, something is wrong. And the brain is going to let you know.
Exactly. So with that, so you've got this personal journey and this history of all this pain and getting through it and coping with it and finding your way through it. How did that inspire the empowered healing coaching? Like that. I know that was a part of it, obviously. Talk us through that.
I talked about how I started my journey with life coaching, and an unexpected byproduct of taking a holistic approach and really sort of analyzing all the core areas of my life led me to feeling better, making a 50% recovery, which is crazy considering the amount of pain that I was in. I would have never thought life coaching was the answer, but hey, it's good to keep an open mind.
Yeah.
And then, I started to get better. I still wasn't 100% better though. And, the truth is that I could have just continued to ride that wave and say, okay, well, this is good enough. At least I'm 50% better. And trust me, being 50% better felt like I was a goddess. Like I felt amazing. I felt on top of the world. I was able to have more of a normal life. Like I could go out and, you know, be out late at night, sit in an uncomfortable chair, you know, come home, go to sleep, not have any pain. It's like the little things, you know, when you have a condition like fibromyalgia, you can't go to the movie theater and sit in those god awful chairs. Well, the chairs are better now. They've improved. Or you can't go out and, you know, have a drink because then you're standing all day and your back starts to hurt because there aren't any stools for you to sit down. It's like the little things that you get back, you know, and some people take for granted, maybe who don't have chronic pain, but I was just really living in the moment. But then I would have some painful flare-ups here. And I remember I actually had a terrible flare-up in my neck and my shoulders that left me bedridden for like 3 weeks. And it was just, there was no medication, nothing that I could take that could even really help. So I was heavily medicated. I was in a lot of pain. And I was like, you know what? I'm not fully better and I deserve better. I know that I can make a full recovery to where I don't have to be in this position. And, you know, the truth is that recovery is a roller coaster ride, right? Because healing isn't always linear. You're going to make a lot of progress. And then suddenly, you know, you find yourself not doing so well. And so that was a part of the journey. I realize that now. But I ended up looking into pain reprocessing therapy. And pain reprocessing therapy, you know, we talked about this earlier, but I'll mention it again. It refers to a system of psychological techniques that you use to reprogram your brain to disrupt the cycle of chronic pain. And I had read a book on this called The Way Out by Alan Gordon, who is a chronic pain survivor. And he invented pain reprocessing therapy.
Nice.
Okay. And so I started working with a coach, someone who's like similar to me, like what I'm doing now. They were a pain recovery coach. And I did that for about 6 months and my symptoms were gone completely.
Nice.
And, you know, I could just talk so much about this, but, you know, it's rooted. So the modality is rooted in neuroplasticity. And fortunately, the brain is neuroplastic, meaning that it's adaptable. So it can learn new patterns and it can unlearn patterns as well. Yes. And so I learned a really powerful technique that I teach my clients, and it's called somatic tracking. And it aims to train the brain to correctly interpret signals from the body. And so a part of it involves attending to a painful or an unpleasant sensation through a lens of safety instead of fear, which over time results in a reduction of the pain symptoms or just completely eliminates them.
Yes.
So in other words, the way that I like to put it is that somatic tracking helps us change the way that we relate to our bodily sensations. Because if every time the pain comes on, we get scared, which is a normal reaction, that's typically how people respond to pain. It's either fear or anger. Right. But if we actually take a moment to get curious about those sensations, what's so interesting is that we notice that they start to go away in many cases. So fear plays a central role in perpetuating pain sensations. As long as we fear the pain, it's likely not going to go away. And I love that old saying, in order to conquer your fear, you have to face it. So I think that old adage absolutely rings true in the context of chronic pain recovery for most, you know, chronic pain conditions, including fibromyalgia. So I did life coaching, I did PRT, I was better. I was actually planning on becoming a coach to begin with, because if you recall earlier, I mentioned I was working with a coach to get some guidance on my career. And I decided, you know what, I want to be a coach. And so I was left with the decision to decide my niche. Well, as I was completing my coaching program, I was also recovering from fibromyalgia. And so I had a few different ideas in mind what I wanted to niche in, but it became so clear to me, chronic pain recovery, this is what I know best. This is I understand this personally, and this is my lived experience, but I understand it in theory as well, you know? And so I think that I was really inspired to start this practice because I can really empathize with people who are struggling with chronic pain. And fibromyalgia in particular is very difficult to understand because there are so many symptoms associated with it. If you tell people you have fibromyalgia, they're like, you're crazy. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
what does that even mean? Right.
How can you have all of those symptoms and like be alive still, you know? Like, people don't understand. And so it's interesting when I talk to my clients, I think just having somebody that sits there and listens and doesn't judge them is healing. And, and actually, and I'm sure, like having people who are kind, who are compassionate, who show you sympathy, your community, the people you surround yourself with is a very important aspect of our recovery, right? We don't want to surround ourselves with people who turn on those danger signals in our brains, who make us feel unsafe. Because remember, the brain needs to feel safe in order for us to slowly get better.
It's got to can't be in the sympathetic. It's got to be in the parasympathetic.
It's that balance, right? Between the sympathetic.
The sympathetic nervous system is where you're going to be afraid and fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, right? And then so if you can get to that parasympathetic state for long enough, you can start to heal and start to feel better. So I totally get that. So
it's all about that balance, that we need. And also, I don't know if you've heard of that, the highly sensitive person, high sensitivity. There's Dr. Elaine Aron talks about this, how 20 to 30% of the population are born with high sensitivity. And I personally resonate with that. I'm a highly sensitive person, which means that I just process thought and emotion with a much greater intensity, but I also experience my environment really intensely. Like, I'm sensitive to stimuli. So like if I go out to a concert, which by the way, I love music, but if I go out to a concert, I am not gonna be able to sleep till 5 a.m. Like I have a friend goes home, they wind down in an hour. I'm like, dude, like I'm so wired.
Yeah.
So I sort of, people with sensitivity, high sensitivity in particular, we take in our experience in a way that is just like, it's on another level. So knowing that I'm sensitive, I create a lifestyle that nurtures my sensitivity. And it's not about being weak, but it's just about knowing yourself, right? Like I know that I'm not going to do well if I go to a concert on Tuesday night because it might mess up my work week. So a part of this work is like creating, this is where life coaching comes in. Like, let's create a routine that works for you. Daily practices, habits, routines that work for you as an individual. And so I create, when I work with my clients, the coaching is very customized because I build relationships with them. And I don't just assume that, oh, you have fibromyalgia, I have fibromyalgia, I know exactly what you're talking about. A part of it is like, I'm still going to get to know you because we're all so unique, right? We are all so unique. And what that means is that our healing journey is going to be unique as well.
Yep, exactly. I love that. Yeah, because it has to be unique. It has to be personalized. It can't be cookie cutter. And so that's important. So if anybody's looking for something like that, that's what the QR code's for. See, that's why we did that, so that you'd be able to get in touch with her easily. So no excuses, guys. Get your phones out and scan the QR code so you can have a conversation, because this is good stuff. And I hope you're learning something. So we're going to go to one more break just for a couple of minutes, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is hope. Because if you don't have hope, you are almost dead in the water already, honestly, especially with chronic things like fibromyalgia and things that I've dealt with over the last few decades. It's, hope is a big deal. So we're going to talk about that on the other side of the break. Stick around. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you soon.
Hey, how you doing? My name is Greg Russell. I'm the host of TechnologyTuesday.com. You can find us on the Conscious Business TV network every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the latest resources to help you make more money in your business. Join us on E360 TV. Come on.
All right, everybody, here we are. We are always already in the last segment. Time flies when you're having fun, and it always goes too fast, especially with subjects that I want to learn more about, like this one. So we might need to have another conversation here. But oh man, there's a lot there. You're doing some awesome stuff, by the way. This is good stuff, and I'm going to put the QR code back up there while I'm talking about it, so I don't forget here. All right, everybody, there it is. Scan away. So I have a question that I like to ask everybody that's on the show, because I'm always fascinated with the answer, because there's no wrong answer. It's always good. On the hard days, if you can think back, be like, God, some of those days were just brutal, or even, I mean, sometimes even now, some days are hard, right? On those days, how do you still maintain hope?
It's such an important question. Because, I had a lot of hard days. Yeah. I had days where it hurt to breathe.
Yep.
It hurt to just turn my neck. And I was unable to get relief from medication. And that's what made me scared, was that right. I'm on some pretty serious things, and I'm really in a lot of pain still. So a lot of worst case scenario thinking. And the reality is that, it is sad, but people with fibromyalgia have a much higher suicide rate. Yep. Because the pain feels inescapable, except if you're heavily medicated and you happen to respond well to what you're taking. But even with that, you don't want to be on medications. And so, those days were really hard. And I actually have a specific memory. It was during the pandemic, the earlier stages of the pandemic, and my pain was really bad, and my world was just completely crashing. I was really struggling with the ability to use my hands, and I wasn't able to type. I could barely shower and wash my hair. And I was at the point where I'm on the phone with human resources, just crying. I mean, she didn't know I was crying, but my face is covered in tears, because I'm I have to go out, I have to quit my job, and I have to move back in with my parents. And I did not want to do that, because I have always been very driven, very ambitious. Even while with fibromyalgia, I went to college, I went to grad school. I cannot tell you the amount of pain that I pushed through to get those classes and just those schedules. But I was I don't know what to do. I had a doctor tell me, you'll probably be on disability by 30. And I was 32. And I had that thought in my head too. I was I wish you would have never told me that.
Right.
But so I was I don't know, this doesn't look good for me. And I'm really scared right now. And so I was feeling almost entirely hopeless, because at this point I've been living with pain for almost 30 years. And I'm I've had it up to here, I can't tolerate this anymore. I ended up taking some time off from work. And I was able to just get to a point where I was starting to relax, because a lot of the stress that I had was coming from work.
Oh man. Yeah.
From our environment with the pandemic. If chronic pain gets worse with fear, then we're living in a pandemic where I'm afraid to go anywhere, to touch anything, to do anything. So that fear, and a lot of people's pain with chronic illness got worse during the pandemic because of the fear. And so I was starting to get a little tiny bit better. And you know what? I, for the first time, actually revealed to some of the people that I was working with that I have a serious struggle with chronic pain. I was really proud, and I had a hard time talking about it at work, because I was worried it would be used against me. I was worried.
Sure.
I wouldn't get the job, or I wouldn't get the promotion. I didn't want people to view me as weak. And unfortunately, sometimes when you have a condition like fibromyalgia, it's stigmatized. and people look down on you. And so I really tried hard to keep it for as long as I could. I actually didn't even say the words fibromyalgia for like 10 years, believe it or not. Now I'm singing it from the rooftops and the whole world knows. But it was very difficult for me to talk about it. Very, very difficult. And so when I talked about it and I just let people know, it was really helpful, actually. Like I felt like this big relief, you know, that I wasn't hiding this secret anymore. And people were actually understanding. They were like, wow, it's incredible that you've made it this long and you've been doing all this work and you have all these responsibilities on top of having fibromyalgia, because it is so hard to get through the day when you have a condition like fibromyalgia. Just to get to 5 p.m. feels impossible. So, you know, all of that to say that for me, I was gradually started to get to a better point, and I really just started looking inward. What really helped was coming across some books. The Way Out by Alan Gordon, which introduced me to this concept of neuroplasticity and mind-body syndrome, or neuroplastic pain is another term for it. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. This is a perspective I haven't heard yet. And I'm a very curious person, so I naturally wanted to learn more.
Yeah.
And, you know, I would say that just my learning and my curiosity, as they say, you know, knowledge is power, and the application of knowledge is even more powerful. And so I started by educating myself. You know, I dug myself out of that hole I was in, you know. I had this narrow focus. Oh, doctors tell me that there's no cure for fibromyalgia and that, you know, I'm not going to get better, although, you know, things are changing now. But that's what I was told for so many years. And so it really took me keeping an open mind and thinking outside of the box. Because there are some people still to this day will say, no, I can't get better. It's not possible. And that's just not true. You know, you can get better from fibromyalgia. And there are many people like myself. And you know what inspired me, what gave me hope, was reading about people that had recovered from fibromyalgia. And I remember when I was doing like a call, like a discovery call with a pain recovery coach, I said, yeah, but can you cure fibromyalgia? That's the real thing. And they said, yes, this treatment works for fibromyalgia as well. And I still needed more. I still needed to see it somewhere. And I purchased a book called Unlearn Your Pain, another book that changed my life, by Dr. Howard Schubner, who's a mind-body pioneer. I love him and his work and what he's done for people with chronic pain. And one of the first testimonies in his book was from somebody that had had fibromyalgia for 25 years.
And then we're going to need to go here in just a second. So we got about a minute left. So go ahead. So
it was just that testimony that I saw, that someone had fibromyalgia for 25 years and they made a recovery. And I just said, I'm sold. It's possible. So it was a combination of things that gave me hope.
Right. No, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I didn't want to have to cut you off later. So but man, so I wish we had more time, because
I know. I can talk for hours.
I know there's so much more to the story. So guys, in her contact info that we're going to post on the show notes, there are a couple other links, and then her website, and there's going to be some really valuable information. So please go there and check it out. And oh my gosh, thank you for being here. This is, I mean, seriously, we could go for another hour, but we can't. So
absolutely,
here we are. But I so appreciate you being here and telling your story and being so real about it, and giving so many people hope. Just thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. All right, here we go, guys. Oh, I love stuff like that. So, okay, I don't have a lot of time because we're done, but thank you for being here, everybody. This is the kind of stuff that I live for. I love these kind of shows. So, like, subscribe, share, follow, all the things. Join us next time on Tuesday, October 22nd for our next show. And until then, have an amazing day. We'll see you next time.